Now, we're headed on our vacation. We're in New Mexico at Fort Sumner, and we're about ready to go into the Billy the Kid Museum. Sunday, May the 31st.
Right.
1992.
Okay.
It says Oshkosh Trunk Company.
So they've been in business
They've been there for a long time.
See, these are
Stoves.
wooden saddles. Indians didn't have saddles. Indians rode bareback. But
Is that a washer? No, that's something.
Corn
they do with
shell.
Corn. They put corn in there.
your leg arms. Now here's leg arms. That's handcuffs. Is what that is. See here, Billy the Kid's behind here. Right in there is really what's left of him.
Here's what?
Point in there.
It's a casket. It's a hearse.
Just think of her somewhere. You don't have to stand still either.
No, you don't have to.
No, Elizabeth, this is the family car.
Yes.
This is a family car. See, it's got three seats.
Well, did you have one of those?
No?
No.
You probably
This
Well,
is
you
a
needed
family.
one.
This is what they used with the hearse. It's got three
Oh,
seats.
okay.
Here's exactly what we had right here. This,
Didn't it have a top?
it had a top, but this probably did too at one time.
Okay.
I remember trucks coming by like this,
Yeah,
more like
43,
that
I
one,
guess,
and they would bring ice, and kids would run out, get pieces of ice. More like this one here, it had a cover.
I mean, now this is what Brady's had. This is what the neighbors up there had. This, you were really uptown. See, that's a 1923 Touring Chevrolet. Well, that was a more expensive car. Get on the thing.
You don't get on them, Daddy.
No. Okay, now, this is what Granddad and Grandmother had.
Single one.
This is a single buggy, and this right back here, I would crawl in. I was small enough that I could get in that and put the lid
What
down.
you got in. He's told me to put the lid.
Died when I was 8 years old. I'd go back and forth to there in the store, to the little old store they lived, when I was like 5 and 6. Like, at all 6 and 7. And that's when I'd run alongside the buggy.
I remember having a thing like this. When we moved from the farm over to the other place we were gonna have a kerosene cooking. We bought a little thing like this you could bake in.
Was it an oven?
It didn't last long because I figured out a better way. You know, you had to use kerosene to cook with while you were out there on the farm. We didn't have gas.
Did this with one of these, just like this, plowed with it. We plowed the garden with a single horse for, till I was up 13 years old. At least 12, 13 years old, we'd plow the garden with that. Now here is a side
Spend all
saddle.
your time,
This is a side saddle.
spend all your time getting food ready and the lantern, you'd have to take a lantern every time you walked out of the house at night because there was no electric light anywhere.
I remember this kind of stove.
Well,
yeah.
That's big, extra big one, but.
Well, I don't know if it looked like that, but I remember that kind. I also remember
Refrigerator?
the Dr. Pepper things.
Yeah.
That
Oh
was-
yeah, this Dr. Pepper
When we
is
went to
much
the
later.
Deposit on bottles.
When we went to the laundry.
Dr. Pepper here.
That.
Now, what is this?
But she had to lift it.
You had them this and you had them double too.
These are egg crates.
Egg crates.
To take to the
Yeah,
egg,
an egg went in each one of those. You filled those up.
hatchery.
This was a forge.
Oh, yeah.
He had much bigger than that. Here's the anvil.
This is for blacksmithing?
Blacksmithing, yeah, all of this. This is a drill. That.
Go on up there, Daddy.
Okay, well, I'm gonna go up and go to school.
You're not enough of a Mexican.
That won't take from here.
Yeah. If you just say it out loud.
Talk, it'll take.
I'm standing at the door of the school that my mother, when she was 16 years old, would fill in for the teacher if she was sick or if she had to go somewhere, and she had 12, 8 to 10 and 12 boys and girls that came from this area out here, and she thought, well, one day I'll give them a paper to fill in, and I will see if they know how and know what nationalities are. So she gave them a paper and wanted them to write down 4 nationalities of people. One kid said, who was raised here, Mexicans, Mexicans, niggers, and white folks. This is the school, and it still stands here.
Why don't you go stand over there so I can take your picture?
Well, it looks like we don't take your picture.
I know. This is the sheep country over here.
It probably will.
Now we're at the opening where you drive up to the house. And those buildings there, I believe the one on the right is the house. This is the house that was built later. And those are the mountains behind. Pretty quiet out here. And then over across from the house.
Where the sheep, the area the sheep is.
This is looking to the west.
So far away Sam was able to get up, right?
Okay, now we're at the front of the house where Grandma lived from 1900 to when she got married. From the front porch is where she saw her husband walk up for the first time, her husband to be. There's some old trees there that were probably there when she was here.
Beautiful setting.
Tin roof, just like what was on it before. And sheep over there, just like what was here before. Okay. Now we'll go around to the other side where we can see the back side.
Picture of the sheep.
I took a picture. This is the back of the house, and that's the famous picture that's been done.
And that tree, cedar tree, isn't it?
Yeah, that tree.
Yeah,
That tree was there when Grandma lived here.
You know what, I bet that bell was there.
I doubt it.
I bet that bell was there. The only thing it wouldn't be is because
This is the other side of the courtyard. It's actually a pretty good sized house. I guess it needed to be for all those big family.
they wanted to take from the back of the house here up the mountain. See right here?
Take what you want there. There's just 2 more on. Just go ahead and take them and we'll.
Now, you know you didn't close your window.
You sound like my grandkids. Oh.
Sound about much like grandkids as you can get.
This is a peacock, kids. Hello, Mr. Peacock. Woo woo! Come on. One last view of all this mountain area that surrounds this.
Well, we
That's
have
all
this
hills.
Well, you can take them.
This is all the sheep country down in here.
I want you to get out and stand with a car, please.
Just take a picture up that one.
Yeah.
Not so much the computers.
Now this is the old hotel, called the Wortley Hotel. It's been here since his daddy's standing up there. This is the hotel where Reverend Laylock stayed. This is looking in the front yard. We're
Get this ugly
in
thing
this cemetery. We even got Mother in here.
off. Weed in the weeds.
And this is
Show 'em
where
the weeds.
Grandma's brother that was just younger than her, John Ross Hunt, the one who got saved the week before Grandma got married
Yeah.
at the revival, and then he died about 6 weeks later, didn't he?
December, I believe it was, wasn't it? She
Yeah,
came
and that
back.
was in September.
Well, yeah, 6 weeks would have been, because she was finishing her honeymoon.
Take a picture of it. It'll look like that it's all a weed patch, but you have to
This is
explain.
the cemetery. Now you can see the gravestones among the weeds,
Well, now this is
Native grass.
but this is
Native
the
grass.
native grass.
They don't mow it.
It's terribly native.
Because it's native grass, we think it's because it's easier.
It's kind of rocky in some of these. There's a lot of rock. But
You
it's
wanna-
certainly not one of
This
your
man
better
would be
kept.
At least 100 years old, wouldn't he?
You know.
His grandma would be over 100 now.
You hear that?
Amen.
that
This
beautiful?
is,
I wonder what
this
they
is
look like.
wild
It
flower.
smells so good.
That's just
Kind
wild
of smells
flower.
like a.
Lilac, doesn't it?
Well,
It's a
this is-
wild.
This is just wild flowers.
Oh,
That's
it's
the reason they
beautiful
don't want it.
smell.
I think that's why they're kind of don't do this like they.
And there's some fresh ones over there.
This is all in the cemetery. It's quite
having-
different.
Having a lovely time.
Of that
Okay.
out the
I
mountain.
will lift up mine eyes to the hills, from whence cometh my help. My help cometh from the Lord, who made the heavens and the earth. He will not suffer my foot to be moved. He that keepeth Israel neither slumbereth nor sleep. The sun shall not smite thee by day, nor the moon by night. Oh, that's probably all I can remember. I don't know. Getting mixed
And
up.
What
we
an
do hope
ending.
that he shall smite these clouds and let the sun come through.
There's some more. Little. Those are the prettiest flowers. I thought maybe Lizzie might like
Isn't
to
that
see
a
those.
strange one?
I don't know whether you
Different flower that's in here. Alice Store and
That's a
Company.
wonderful view of the house behind it.
This is what's across the street. About 1876, Alice's fleeing commotion in Colfax Company started a store in Lincoln. They supported McSweet's side during and after the war. Later, J.W. Laws made the property into a sanatorium. He was an early effort to use the valley's climate. This is the site of the earliest jail. Crude structure, part underground, served community many years. Never secure, this carousel abandoned in the middle 1880s when prisoners began to be confined in the new jail built behind the courthouse. So it was over in this area. And this is what's across the street. A bed and breakfast. Casa de Patron. This looks like it might have been an old store. It's been restored. It's an old house. Catholic church. I'm not sure when it was built. Orion Trading Company. One of Lincoln's earliest structures built in the 1815s. Its thick walls protected Spanish Americans against the Apaches in Lincoln County War. Murphy sharpshooters were stationed here. In 1937, Chavez County Historical Society undertook the restoration of the tower. Site is Squire Wilson's home. This looks like it was probably the mercantile store. Oh, Grandma might have bought a lot of things. This is the old Dolan home. This was built in 1888 by J.J. Dolan, who took part in the Lincoln County War on the Murphy side and afterwards was conspicuous in county affairs. It served as a hotel called the Benito Inn. Pretty run down today. go over there and see. This is the site of the opening of the McSween home, opening a law office in Lincoln. Alex McSween rebuilt an old adobe into a 10-room house. Doesn't look like there's enough room there for 10 rooms. On July 19th, 1878, Pepin's posse fired it to house inmates. Leading victims of this stratagem was McSween himself. The burned down house was never rebuilt. This is across the street. Oh, George Hunt sitting out here waiting to buy some things from the merchants.
All right. I'm trying to find out if they sent the right stuff. I don't think they sent the right stuff at all.
Probably.
Just like that bunch, they never can get here what they need.
It sounds just like him too.
Take a picture and then you'll get the whole thing.
Lincoln is not a ghost town. It has been inhabited continuously since it was founded in the early 19th century by Hispanic settlers. Some of their descendants still live in the area. But there are ghosts here. You can feel their presence when you walk down the main street. Some had famous names that you might recognize. Kit Carson, famous frontier soldier and Indian fighter. Pat Garrett, one of the most renowned sheriffs of the western frontier. General Lew Wallace, for a time the governor of the territory of New Mexico, but better known as the author of the novel Ben-Hur. John Chisholm, one of the great cattle barons of the Old West. John J. Blackjack Pershing, later the commander of U.S. forces in World War I. And Henry McCarty, alias William Antrim, alias Bill Bonney, better known as Billy the Kid. Victorio, one of the last powerful Apache chiefs. The Apache tribes dominated this part of the territory for at least 300 years. They were fine hunters and fierce warriors, and did not take kindly to the Hispanic settlers who began to move into the area after the Mexican-American War of 1846. The Hispanics built several small villages along the Rio Bonito. Together they were called Los Placitos del Rio Bonito, or the little plazas by the pretty river. The largest village was Bonito Plaza, which is now Lincoln. The town became the county seat of Lincoln County, the largest county in the United States, covering about 1/4 of the entire territory of New Mexico. There was a competition for grazing land, for money, and for political power. It involved powerful men, such as Thomas B. Catron, a political boss in Santa Fe, and John Chisholm of Roswell, one of the biggest cattle ranches in the West. In 1878, the Lincoln County War broke out. It began over money. On one side was the O.G. Murphy Company, a mercantile partnership formed by ex-Army officers from Fort Stanton. The Murphy Group had been accused of cheating the government and of squeezing the local farmers and townspeople. On the other side was John Tunstall, a young Englishman with family money to invest in business and ranching. He saw an opportunity to take some business from the Murphy Group by setting up his own store. There were threats and lawsuits, and finally, gunfire. On February 18, 1878, Tunstall was murdered by a sheriff's posse of Murphy supporters as he rode back toward Lincoln from his ranch. The law broke down. The people of the county took sides, and the war was on. A young clerk with the O.G. Murphy Company stood for the Murphy forces. The Tunstall faction formed a vigilante group, calling itself the Regulators. Among them was a sharpshooting itinerant teenage cowboy called Billy Bonney, Billy the Kid. The fighting ranged over a wide area. A posse of Regulators pursued suspected murderers of Tunstall to the Pecos River and took 2 of them prisoner. On the way back to Lincoln, they were shot and killed when they allegedly attempted to escape. Then Lincoln County Sheriff William Brady and one of his deputies were ambushed and killed near the Tunstall store in retaliation for Tunstall's murder. Billy the Kid, Tunstall's friend and employee, was held responsible for the killing. there was a fight at Blazer's Mill to the south of Lincoln. A man from each side was killed. The war went on for months, and finally in July came to a climax, with McSween and his surviving forces trapped in the McSween house in Lincoln. The siege lasted 5 days. At last, as an army detachment watched from just down the street, the McSween house was set afire. The McSween group held out until evening, and as they fled through the back door, McSween and 3 others were gunned down. Billy the Kid escaped and became a fugitive in Lincoln County. There was one last act of violence. The widowed Susan McSween hired an attorney and sued to avenge the loss of her husband and property. The lawyer she retained was murdered on the street. The Lincoln County War, remote as it was, had become national news. President Rutherford B. Hayes appointed a new territorial governor to clean up the mess. He was General Lew Wallace, a Civil War veteran from Indiana. Wallace took up residence at the governor's house in Santa Fe. Pat Garrett became sheriff of Lincoln County. His first order of business was to arrest Billy the Kid. Billy was captured, brought to trial in Mesilla, and convicted of the murder of Sheriff Brady. He was brought back to Lincoln, manacled, and under sentence of hanging. But in a daring escape, he managed to get a gun and kill his guards, J.W. Bell and Robert Ollinger. Once more, Garrett pursued Billy. This time he shot him down in the house of Pete Maxwell, a Fort Sumner rancher. Peace came to Lincoln. But during the war, fighting had flared up again between the Army and the Mescalero and Warm Springs Apaches. Among the troops at Fort Stanton were the Buffalo Soldiers, black cavalrymen from the 9th Cavalry Regiment. These able troops pursued Apache Chief Victorio into Mexico. The people of Lincoln took up their peaceful pursuits again, an adolescent gone wild or simply misunderstood. The legends have become much more powerful than reality. Walk down the main street of town today, and you stroll into the last century. A Torreon serves as a reminder of the times when Hispanic settlers took refuge from Indian attacks. The Tunstall store has changed little and has been restocked with merchandise from the period. The site of the old McSween house is now occupied by another building. The Montano store, one of the strongholds of the McSween group in the 5-day battle, has been preserved much as it was in the 19th century. The Wortley Hotel, restored in 1960, is reminiscent of another era. Look north, out over the beautiful Bonito River Valley, and beyond to the fabled Capitan Mountains. And across the street from the hotel is the old courthouse, which was originally the L.G. Murphy store and later housed the office of Sheriff Pat Garrett. It was from here that Billy the Kid killed Deputies Bell and Ollinger and made his famous escape. Inside is a museum with artifacts and mementos from Lincoln's turbulent period. In the wall, you can still see a bullet hole from Billy the Kid's gun. The Mescalero Apache Reservation near Ruidoso includes a peaceful luxury resort, the Inn of the Mountain Gods. Enjoy Lincoln. Historians still argue about its famous war. Who were the villains? Who were the heroes? Take a first-hand look at history and decide for yourself. There are very few places in the West where the old frontier days live so vividly as they do right here on this street.
His name, A. Hunt. These people were part of the commission to redo and organize the old courthouse. The house where Grandma was married in 1906. We have a picture in the rule book of her and her wedding party standing right here with the edge of that showing. Called the Dr. Woods house. This is the house that George Hunt rented for the winter when he was still in town.
could be.
But this is not the original ceiling.
Dr. Woods put the ceiling.
Dr. Woods put this ceiling in, he
It's a
said.
beautiful chandelier, I don't know if that was there.
We don't think so.
Probably not.
But this floor is original.
Dr.
So
Woods
Grandma probably, we think, might have got married in this room
stood
since it's the
somewhere on
living
this
room.
floor when she got married.
I think she stood here.
My mother.
She might have stood.
Isn't that something? We also
Our
have a picture.
bedrooms where probably the girls and Grandma stayed. Maybe John.
John might have stayed in one of these rooms.
'Cause he wasn't.
Might have been this little room here for John when he was sick.
Some of the window panes, the glass is, much of it is still original. Floor is original. It's been painted at least 3 different times with 3 different colors. There's Grandma's bathroom.
That's her bathroom.
This is her washstand.
Can you imagine
This
getting
is
all
probably
your clothes
Grandma
in his
Hunt's
closet?
room.
He didn't have to have as many clothes, obviously, in those days.
You know.
Get them in that little closet.
Kitchen, but it probably didn't look like this. This has been redone after 1913. But there's some nice furniture in here. Here's the threshold into the living room, to the dining area, where
I
Grandma
think this is where Grandma had her wedding dinner.
in the wall. Okay, they say this is a hole was put here by a bullet from Billy the Kid's 6-shooter when he escaped.
So this may be where they had it. I would say this is more like
Don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, this is the courtroom.
There is the handprints of Billy the Kid.
This is the judge's bench. County courthouse. Okay, this is the school where Grandma came into Lincoln to go to in the wintertime. It was a church also. Lots of playground area. Outside of every kind of cactus there is in the world. There's another kind over here. Now we're in the White Dunes National Monument. These people are on top of a dune. Looks like snow, but it's really gypsum.
Get a picture.
I am getting a picture.
You're just gonna stand there.
I want to get a picture of you and Mother. Look at that dark cloud.
I hear rain. I want to get a picture of some of those. Looks like a lot of snow area out in the middle of the white dunes. There's your tree to take a picture of. We are in old historic Tucson. We're going to walk around and see the old historic lampposts and houses. That's the street. That's one of the houses there, and palm trees.
Oh, that's easy.
Cactus is tall.
That whole
You're
corner.
in the area that's the oldest place in Tucson. We're sitting outside. Mother is sitting outside with us.
No, I've never looked at that. I've got all the
Down here with the birds and the vines. Here we are in the garden of the oldest adobe house in Tucson.
Green light.
Not green yet.
Just pushing the red button.
You said that button right there. Push it. Push it.
Picture of that cat.
Different.
Weird.
It is weird.
This wall. That is unreal. Stopped at the Arizona Historical Society. We saw miners and we saw air conditioners and all kinds of exciting things. This is the swimming pool, the Windmill Inn in Sunsetty West. These flowers are beautiful.
Some of them are falling off. I don't know what they call them.
They are pretty. There's some mountains over there, but they are a long ways away.
You ought to get that, I don't know whether you should.
This is out beside the swimming pool.
Well, look at here. See, that is fed.
It's what?
That is fed by fresh water. What it does,
Pretty.
circulate it. It doesn't run off. What it does is it circulates that water over into there and back again and back again. It runs through some kind of a wall.
Other kind of flower. Lucy, you probably know what these flowers. We'll take a picture of this tree with this little blooms on it. all kinds of vegetation here. It's a tall tree, but we don't know what these are. We're not used to them in Kansas. This is on the other side of the swimming pool. Another flower. On kind of a bushy, leafy tree. Bush.
Yeah, you got laugh like your mother. And she could laugh so big, and I just loved her. She was so nice.
See, when I was
They
courting
go down and
Maxine,
talk with
They
her.
called her
we had a
Sister
little
Walker.
poodle. And that little poodle, I didn't like dogs in the house. You know,
Wasn't a poodle, it was a cocker spaniel.
Well, whatever it was. And anyway, I'd go in the front door, the dog would go out the back.
That's my method too. Always I tell them, I'm sorry, but you have to put your doggy in the bathroom.
She tells him she's allergic to dogs.
Yeah,
My
are
sister
you?
and I
We
figured out
brought
how to do
ours
that.
out here, but she
We had a
died.
little poodle.
We had to have her put to sleep. But I would
You
never.
didn't have a doggy
No.
outside.
No,
now, you
after
know,
she died, I would never.
This is the backyard of Maxine's house. These are her orange trees. With some little oranges growing on there. All kinds of neat little things. Cactus are beautiful out here. Introduce this other little one.
That's Shanna.
Gordon Nelson.
How about this?
Uh,
Go over here.
Come on, get in
All right,
there.
so you guys together. She already got us.
Come here.
Come get in here.
I've been with you a long, many years. I'm not gonna let you go.
Wait a minute, don't push me.
He hadn't planned to go anywhere, right?
No.
Oh,
I
this
thought
is
maybe
nice.
he was, but he didn't.
This is the Andersons and the Nelsons. The Nelsons are the new pastors under fire.
Fire, yeah.
Their very best friends is,
One of their better.
You guys don't look to me like you've changed any.
yeah, we changed one little town. It's the way we walk.
haven't. Not
It makes a
enough.
difference.
Well, you really don't look a bit different.
No, you guys
Now, I
look
didn't
very,
know
very
Maxine
well
because
kept.
I hadn't seen her for so many
I'm
years.
fat. I wasn't fat when she knew.
She was kind of.
Well, she wasn't either.
I'm fat.
Her hair was
She wasn't either.
blonde, you know,
Well,
it's more white now, and you know.
Oh.
my picture.
Are California, looking over Palm Desert, the top of the mountain. Honey, look this way.
Oh,
Here they are, kings of the mountain,
Are you driving down
real kings.
just outside of
Such
Jerusalem?
ugly mountains. Really, they are. Honey, it's running.
That you really
It's running.
that you really came up here. She really did do it. She came up here.
Let me
The road mother came up. Are you believing this? She really did it.
Well,
Also, 3 different Indian reservations.
And there's our tour guide right there.
And it's hot, 115 degrees.
It's not that hot here.
He said it's gonna be 113.
Here? Or
That's what he said,
not
the guy.
here. It's nice down here. All right, here we are going into the Spruce Goose. We're inside where the spruce is. It is huge. This thing is huge.
Wait a minute. Yeah. Yes. Let's go walking through it. That's outside.
This is looking in at the sea.
Boy, looking here at the radio communication.
No, it's pretty dark. Inside in your first class restaurant on the Queen Mary.
That's what you call paying the full bill and going first class.
He's going to right beside us. Yeah, take a picture. And here's another eating with the birds.
He's really working with that meat.
Now,
Get him-
Maxine has eaten with the birds. I got up with her and we ate with birds too. She would understand about the birds. A lot of time out here on this.
Is that an advertising clip or is that a blend?
We're looking at Long Beach here.
How far here from the job, All right.
These are the lost people in this ship.
Yeah.
They're the ghosts that they talked about having on this boat. That might be 40 feet down to the other end, about 20 feet.
On every place we walk outside.
So,
And here's two vagrants trying to get into one of the rooms.
A passenger tour.
the only place you got to go was along the edges, along the side, and up the stairwell.
So
Queen's car
all
was
those
there.
different decks that were steam room of this thing. Engine room. Here's an engine. Lots of dials. Walked all over this thing today.
That's where the swallows and the pigeons live, up there.
Man, wouldn't that be
Have
nice?
enough light for it?
Yes, there's enough.
What is this somebody below here?
Yeah, that's somebody below.
Isn't that pretty?
Terrace, see, they moved the 14th and 13th. He has a bigger.
The ocean?
Come on over here if you want to on the movie here.
No.
Yeah.
No, I'm not moving.
You're in the movie.
We were
And you
saying
can
that
move, and Daddy always
someone
does
told us
move
you
and
could
talk.
see the ocean.
Okay.
And we've been
I
debating
told
whether
you
you can
that.
see the ocean.
But
I
then
don't think you're gonna see the ocean.
after we
from the
drove
west
down
side,
there
from the
last
west
night, I said, now, I'm not
The
sure.
ocean was
It
up.
doesn't look to me like
Yeah,
there's too many no's.
we have an earthquake goes
Uh-huh.
through the
Go
ocean.
that way.
Well, whatever way.
Right.
Before we drove down the street.
This is pretty.
that we came in.
Yeah, you're about 5 miles from the
Put
ocean.
some plants in and get some
Yeah.
plants.
Some floor, we took it
Frankly, you
down
don't have the energy to do
on
it.
that canyon.
Nor the money.
Okay, if you
But
kept
you
going
need,
that way, you were
yeah. It was a
And,
series of
You
probably
don't
100
really need
feet
to
long.
have that much.
This is,
Just resting a little bit.
Fred went down early.
You sit in your comfortable chair.
Yeah, you may. But anyway,
Kansas.
and then see Ruth, our Ruth, is 10 hours
I know
later.
you came in.
I mean, it's tomorrow now.
But they are
Tomorrow
separate
morning.
buildings. You can cross as a crossway on the third floor.
That's about like,
Cross over on the third floor.
you know.
There is a and you down to that corner and then over.
Smith, and they are in Honolulu.
And Betty walks up and down the fire stairs a lot.
Doug and Ruth
Gets her
have
exercise
added, they have added Pakistan to his area. He has all of North Africa,
I'm glad to hear that.
and then all the way to,
Have you
well,
heard of,
Israel,
engine
Jordan,
rooms to
which
a
don't,
very-
you know,
that's
we
quite
can't
a
go
workout.
over there.
Have you ever heard of Paul Evans, who used to have the
And then,
Haven Arrest broadcast?
and then they have one.
I know I have.
Anyway, he's gonna be here tomorrow. They had their 50th anniversary. This Mark Bell was married to
There's a lot of.
Brother Evans was, old Brother Evans was in Scribner. His daughter married Mark Bell, and they'll be here tomorrow, Paul
It's on
Evans.
the east of Turkey.
They had Paul's 50th anniversary on the Queen Mary.
Is it Pakistan?
They took over one of those big ballrooms.
She said
Well,
so.
that's,
he had such
Richard
a
Duggar
following.
responsible. Yeah, we were,
Bible school.
we were in
Oh,
the
really?
same,
Went to school
we
with
were in the
you?
same classes in Bible school, two
And
classes.
Kansas people that
All
are out
of us.
here.
That's
And there
neat.
are a whole lot more missionaries and ministers that have retired in this area.
Uh-huh.
They've lived all over the world and they have retired here now.
Isn't it?
It's really exciting, you know.
Yeah.
This retirement is something else, you know, we stop where Maxine lives, you know, over Sun City. And there are so many people from back east where they live that are moving out here.
Right.
A new couple was just in the church Sunday
They
night.
talk about California gonna fall in the oceans because everybody's coming out here, skipping the United States over.
I don't, the people from the school probably.
Well,
The
honey,
school, the
Honey,
school
who
in the
was it we
cars.
met, who was it we met the other day, that you, Homer, and Doris, and at that district dedication?
Oh, they had a dedication of a new district office. Who would it be that knew you? Somebody who,
Camry.
oh yeah, Cameron.
Oh.
Who's, he was,
Great Ben.
John, what's his name,
Followed in him.
was in Ottawa, and his brother-in-law, Camry, was in Manhattan.
Okay, that's right.
John.
Moran, Ramona Moran.
Computers will pick up the last name. Like you got home and Rule, they'll say, "Dear Mr. Rule." The computer picks that up. Okay, they were writing to Steve Rexroad, and they got the name Assembly of God, and it picked up the last thing there. And so Steve opened the letter, and it said, "Dear God." Addressed to Stephen Rexroad.
He's still here, isn't he, in California?
He lives in the next town near Irvine.
Does he?
She, that's her. Are you lighted up enough for me?
I'm trying.
Hermosa Beach, this would be a good distance. You know, to maybe move down here, and we like what you see.
Yes, I can show you.
Yeah, but
If I can get you all in the picture, I will.
You see, well, maybe I'm sure the rest of his life. You don't try to follow your kids around.
No.
But you do think it's kind of nice. This one is going to have to achieve, you know.
Oh, I don't know.
Someday.
Are we too wide?
Yeah, it's a little too wide. Needs to.
Works in a large law firm downtown Los Angeles.
Ruth moved to get in front of somebody. She's so tiny.
It is hard to see her, isn't it?
Yeah.
That was a good question.
Where can you stand?
So anyway, he's. I don't know. Where do you want me to stand?
Maybe you can
Downtown.
Behind Jim?
Every morning.
see if you come right in next to him.
Get across the track. Good.
No, he's just.
You got to start showing your Virginia himself.
Yeah, I'll stand right next to Jim. Ladies and gentlemen. He can get in before traffic. First 2 hours.
That helps, that helps, yes.
Better off over where I was at.
I guess a couple of other fellows joined the firm as he did.
Lovely group.
You ready?
You're wonderful.
Somebody else in that.
Smile.
All right.
Or.
We'll wait for the second. Do it one more time. Wait for the second clap.
You'll be, yeah, I was in the School of Education and graduate studies there.
Because that first one was
Psychologist.
well, because I looked over here.
One more.
Where's my but I remember.
Back where you were before everybody.
Okay, we ready?
Wait for the second flash to smile.
All the fellows from India. Ron Shaw did. Ernie Wood did.
So I have to get monitoring from them. Is the whistle be blown or the fingers to be moved? Well, we appreciate, Doris and I and our daughter and son-in-law, Scribner, appreciate very, very much being invited not only to your 50th, Fred and Betty, but into the dinner. But we're family. There's a difference between being invited and being family. You can say what you want if you're family. And when you go on vacation for 47 years, and each year you go on vacation and it's a hilarious time. In case you never knew it, these two people were hilarious. They are yet. High sometimes even. But when you ended up in the hospital every year with Betty, that takes you out of the class of friends. You become family. So family we were. I've got to be, listen, I've got to be serious, kids and grandkids. I've got two things here. Really three. One, I'm going to be serious because I want the grandkids to know. Let me see whose grandkids are out. And then I've got a funny thing, and then I've got a hilarious. But I'm going to start with the serious. Your granddad and Carol and Ruth, your dad, and Rich, I'm going to go way back when you didn't even know. And I'm going to say this for all of us, for Fred today. Fred not only worked on a church, and the reason I say that is because I was superintendent and I taught a class, and I worked in the first church that Fred was in not in Kansas. Was it? Was Ottawa the first church in Kansas?
Well, we're Concordia for a while.
Concordia for a while, and then Ottawa. And in Ottawa, Fred changed things, and Betty changed things. They didn't mix them up; they changed them. The thing about them was they never left a church that the buildings were not better, the living conditions were not better, but Fred Greve, and with a very tremendous help of Betty, they changed people. I want you to know that around this table, they changed people. And the reason I say that because I have faces too. What he ever saw, what Fred ever saw in me, more than us coming together and visiting together, that would say, I'd like to see him maybe in a pulpit someday. But in Fred Greve, there was a building of teaching of people. A teaching, a building of teaching people. And I set up in his prayer room where there was many books, and he was laying before me all of the old style, because I didn't get to go to Bible school. We were at age level with 3 children at that time. And Fred was going to do it anyway. And so we got all the books, was laying the books all out. Then Fred said, let's pray about these. Let's pray that you'll really get into these. God's got something good for you. When he said that, he meant it. And we were in the process of praying when the city bus hit the back of my car and tore it over. But there was a change that night. But I want all of us around this table, and the youngest to the oldest around this table, that nowhere in Kansas, in pastoring, could you keep Fred from not only learning himself and reaching out in that learning more, but everyone in that church knew more about Bible, knew more about reading, and he gave more about teaching. And every once in a while he'd be carrying bricks in, or this or that, and he would fix them in rows, and or however it was, and he'd make teaching blocks out of it. That went on to Santa Cruz, and then came down to the last school that he taught in. We give you honor, Fred and Betty. We give you honor. Because the closest friends we'll ever have taught others, and you have many children tonight because they're older. Let's give them a hand. And then the other side of it is, Fred can sing. Did any of you guys know? Fred has a very nice voice. It was better farther back than it is now. Good. But I think one of the songs that he sang, just a few hundred feet, and there was the river, and it was a flood stage. Now, the Meredithine River at flood stage was a little bit different than the Mississippi. Mississippi was larger and wider and longer, but this was narrower and smaller but faster when it flooded there. And there was a boat that they used, and it was tied to a big tree. And down from that big tree, about a quarter of a mile, less than that, and it seemed closer in a little bit than that even, this boat was tied to that big tree. And that dam that dropped about 14 feet was farther down, and at flood stage, it only dropped 6 feet. And the water boiled good. And Fred said, row, row, now that was the song, row, row, row your boat gently up the stream. And as he sang that, we untied it, and he said, now, I have rowed. Fred would say it this way, I have rowed. Boat in the stream on the Mississippi. And there's a way that you do it. You go against the current at a turn of the stream. Okay. So we untied him. We threw the rope in. I held on till he got the oars, and his mighty muscles took the oars. And I forgot to do something that I thank God for a lot of times. You ordinarily get in the boat and you give it a push into the current and you jump in the boat. And I forgot to do that. Boy, the Lord is good. Because immediately the boat had a mind of its own and it turned downstream. The oar broke. And said, this is faster than I thought, Homer. And he gave his mighty muscles to pull to the oar. And he said, do something. The oar broke. Oh, Lord, how good you are. So I grabbed one limb when we went by, and he grabbed a limb at his end, and 2 mud balls crawled out of that. And we went up the bank, and I can remember the resounding words of Fred Greve saying, boy, they sure keep rocking oars around. Carol, you were the one that told me only 3 minutes is all you get. You want me to tell a story on Carol? Yes. Carol was a real help to the. Carol was really cute. Wasn't she, Ruth? She's older than you, isn't she? Did she ever tell you what to do? I don't think so. I'll look at you later. So, I think it's Colorado. If I'm not mistaken, it's Colorado. Fred, well, your granddad and your dad, whenever they went somewhere, they taught us a lot of things. You dress, you swear. And they just did it in a hurry, and every time they just looked grand. Now, when you go into a Colorado church visit, and your white shirt and your dark suit and your tie, and Fred was just Fred. But when he came in with Betty, they didn't know he was just Fred. And when Carol sits that Sunday morning on that vacation in that church that nobody knew who these folk who come in really were, they had no idea that he was an Assembly of God preacher on vacation. But in the Sunday school class, somebody says, honey, it's nice to have you. Yeah, that's right there. Honey, it's nice to have you this morning. What does your mama and your dad? He's a preacher. Who does he preach for? The Methodist Church. Fred said, you know what? I couldn't figure out. They were just singing good, and all at once somebody came to the pulpit, and the whole tone of the entire church. I never did know how Fred got introduced that day. You want me to go on to just one more? Will you give me one more, Carrie? One more. We Three Pigs. I'd like to go into that. You don't remember the story about the 3 little pigs? We're only going to use 2 of them. Now, Fred has a brand new Plymouth. Beautiful car. And they took us on some fantastic vacation. But you needed a fantastic vacation because you knew what was going to happen at the end of it. Betty, it's unfair. But you're still here and you're winning the battle. So we went up above Timberline and in Colorado. We went to Mesa Verde. Shall I tell them this, Fred? We went to yeah, I'm gonna tell them. We went to Mesa Verde. Has anybody been to Mesa Verde? All been to Mesa Verde? Okay, you go to the Indian ruins, and to go from one level to another, you climb a ladder, right? And there are openings in all of these areas, and the wind becomes a tunnel. The wind blows up this tunnel when you climb a ladder. So in those days, you did not wear slacks. Does anybody remember that day? Well, it's coming in just a minute. In that day, you did not wear slacks. You did not wear, I don't have one on. You don't either, Fred. What's wrong? I have a tie that's made out of dress material, but you didn't wear that type of thing in that day. Black suits, right, Bishop? Long faces, white collars. But Betty and Doris went in, and they went all around Mesa Verde, all around the ruins. But they went up the ladders with the skirts on, and the skirts went up the ladders around them first. You were still Pentecostal, boy. You did not wear slacks, but your skirts were on the rise. Piece in the paper come out the next day. It said Pentecostal ladies have rising skirts. We went on the $1 Million Highway, one of the most beautiful drives. Remember, Fred? Remember? Betty, let's test their memories, kids. What do you say? You remember the deer that jumped over the front? And I said, stop, Fred, stop. A deer just killed itself. Never could see the deer again. We went to where they were making the ticket to Tommy. Now, Fred and Betty didn't believe in going to shows. Nobody in the Pentecostal circles went to shows. Nobody drove in and rolled the windows. I won't go any further. So we went to Silverton one day, and we seen them making ticket to Tommy. That was beautiful. Then we started down out of the mountains, and just before we got into fenced area, we looked, and there was a car in front of us. Now we're Pentecostal, and we are good Pentecostal. Amen. And this is 2 preachers on vacation. And surely what 2 preachers on vacation? Number 1, they would not drive too fast. Fred was doing 80 miles an hour. Number 2, you wouldn't go around a car that had a tag. Assembly of God Church. Is that what it says?
Ambassadors.
Oh, Christ Ambassador. But Fred went around Christ Ambassadors 80 miles an hour.
He was shouting. He was shouting.
Ordinarily at that speed you wouldn't honk your horn and wave and say hallelujah. And I said, Fred, there's 2 hogs in front of us. And we got them both at the same time. I flew in an airplane. I know when you're airborne, boy, we were airborne. So we got stopped, and the Christ Ambassadors got stopped. And the farmer came out. And the farmer was nice. They took the pigs in and were going to butcher them. But the Christ Ambassador people who had the sign on their bumper, number 1, they didn't like 80 miles an hour. Number 2, they didn't like a horn honked around. Number 3, they didn't like pigs killed. But number 4 really scattered it. Because Carol and Ruth had shorts on.
Oh, no.
Carol and Ruth. Of all the times to hit a pig.
And this was 1950.
Huh?
About 1947.
1947. That was before the other generation, wasn't it? So we went on. God was good to us not to kill us. God was good to us not to wreck the car. It did bend the frame. God was good to us to let us go, and we thanked the Lord and went to church the next morning. Who do you think was in church? Who do you really think taught the Sunday school? Now, for your benefit, Ruth and Carol, what do you think the Sunday school lesson was on? It was short, short, short. Doris is telling me, quit. It's time to get away from this family. But I'm going to tell you something. It has been one of the greatest times. And some of you don't know because I said something, and some of you said, no. Doris and I had our 50th last year in Kansas. And Betty was sick. We didn't realize that until Fred came. But Fred took a plane, and your granddad took a plane and flew to Kansas to be in our 50th. And Betty still fighting the battle of sickness. And I'm going to tell you something. There's no ship that sails the seas better than a ship that has friendship when it's gone through storms and calm and peace. Fred and Betty, we love you. We appreciate you. We had some of the funniest, the best, the greatest time. I'll never tell anybody about peeking under the curtain.
No.
It's none of your business. Thank you for letting us come.
Then nobody can top what they'll do.
But in thinking about this evening, I thought, well, after all, it is my brother. Maybe I ought to just talk about him. And you can't talk about him without talking about Betty. I mean, there is no way. You can't separate the two. But I'm going to start by saying, what is a brother? And I thought I'd tell you that a brother is a kid that comes along into a family after the father, in great consternation, has produced 2 girls. And they at last have the little boy. So every evening you comes son family worship time. This same little kid, what is a brother? It's a kid that gets some critical sickness when he's 4 years old. And he goes right to the point of death. And it gets so severe that his mother, in desperation, never having known anything about doing anything, other than go to church and Sunday school, gets out a telephone book, opens to the yellow pages, runs her finger down until it stops, looks at the name, calls the number and says, "Excuse me, sir, do you pray for the sick?" The guy not only prayed for the sick, the little boy got healed, and from henceforth, the whole tribe became Pentecostal. What is a brother? A brother is one who finally gets to high school. This kid just sort of floats through. Of course, the older sister was a genius, and she never had to crack a book, and then the other one came along and sort of plodded through. And then this kid comes along following them, and so he has the art of sort of waiting till the last minute to do things. I don't know, that was something that happened early on in his life. It doesn't happen anymore, I'm sure. But I always remember the time that he woke up suddenly one day and said, "Oh my, the major theme on which our English course is graded is due tomorrow, and I don't have a theme. What will I do?" And he badgered his two poor sisters and his mother until they were at the point of hysterics. So they got in a huddle and they worked and worked and worked frantically for a couple of hours. What can we help? How can we help this kid get this theme written? What will we do? So we all pooled our thoughts and our ideas and put them all together. And finally we came up with the idea that would get this kid an A in English. So we call him in and we say, "We've got the subject for your theme." He looks at us and says, "Ah, shoot, I wrote that an hour ago. I wrote on the, why did the turtle cross the highway?" That was the theme, and we had beat our brains out getting the title. What is a brother? A brother's a guy that finally goes to college. And instead of getting, I was going to say like what he should have had, but he got the girl that had everything. I mean, the whole thing. Brains, personality, looks, musical talent, everything. He gets her. And then they become a team. And what a team. I mean, he's one of these guys that's a master of all trades, he can, just name it, he can do it. I mean, any screw, any appliance, anything that needs put together, fixed, he can do it. But Betty knew how to be a resourceful and a loving mother. She knew how to be a perfect homemaker. She was a financial whiz. She could balance family budgets back when, they were just unbalanceable. She managed to keep things going. He got a winner. I don't know how, but he. We're glad he did. I need to insert two little personal things here. One happened when this gal had a husband who was an army chaplain, and he was sent suddenly overseas for a tour of duty, leaving her with a little 6-year-old girl and no home, no place to be. I mean, there she was, kid and sister. So who opened their home? Fred and Betty. And I don't know, I've thought, in afterthought, I've gone over it 1,000 times. The unspeakable emotional trauma that must have been theirs when this mother and this kid stayed for 5 or 6 months in their home. But graciously took it and let us feel that we weren't really killing him off, you know. I don't know. Betty, you've been sick a lot since then, but I'm not going to fight that.
You didn't do it.
The other time I remember, of course, and I don't want to get lying on this, is but 12 years ago when I lost my companion of 42 years, I came apart a little bit at the seams. But they provided the glue to put me back together again. They took me places, they showed me things, they gave me love, they gave me reassurance, they gave me hope, care, and all the things that you need in that trying hour. So I owe them a lot for that. What is a brother? A brother is a guy that goes to college, gets the best woman that's there, brings her into his family, and then he finds one who will be sacrificing enough that she will do without everything so that he can go back to school and get the coveted doctorate. Not many gals would do that, I'm here to tell you. And this family appreciates the gal that did it for her husband. So here's to a great couple. I hope all of us can know the happiness and the contentment and the greatness that they have found in each other and can make ourselves better people because we've known.
And I've been married now 30 years. Carol's husband Bob is in Singapore. I got a call from your husband there. I got a call. Bob had to go to Singapore. I know how Carol misses him. Steve, her son was here in Canada. So I congratulate my daughter and her husband Bob and their family on their 30th anniversary. 25 years ago, in 1967, my other daughter got married to a fine young man named Douglas Clark. And they got married in Craig Chapel in Bethany Park in Santa Cruz. Joel Wilson played the organ. I was privileged to preside over this ceremony. It's a very precious, loving, gentle ceremony. I like to keep it conversational and gentle and warm. It came to the end and I said, what God hath joined asunder, no man put together. Uphill battle. On their 25th anniversary of being asunder. I want to be bright to break the day, start your day in a spiritual way. Bang, there's power in the blood.
But if you all wouldn't mind too much, could we just close by singing Let's Do the Tide? Somebody else is going to start it.
Blessed be.
Been coming to see us, but for everybody to get the day off at the same time took a lot of doing, and we're so thankful. All the Doug, all the way from Cyprus, and their training, Jeff and Jay, all the way from Costa Mesa.
Cyprus and
That's
Mediterranean.
when you're walking, that takes a while. Karen and Jim from Northern California. Rich, his family, Judy. Judy, we love you. Thank you for coming all the way from Missouri. You had to plan your vacation long to coordinate both jobs. And Carol, all you've done today. You've been our special child. Thank you so much. Scribner's. I think I can